Okay, so Clarice and Rania, thank you so much for joining. I'm very excited about this. I was like a little child yesterday. It's like, I can't wait for this to start, so that I could talk to you about and also learn from your experience, because this is a support group as well. We're going to talk to each other, but we're also going to learn from each other's experience so that we can see how the one is handling it and how the other one is handling their things at home, and maybe try something. Because in the end, if you sit with children that has or might have ADHD, the one thing is everyone is individual. It's not like it comes out in a handbook and this is exactly the characteristics that you're going to see and this is what you're going to do. There's not a clear line with this. So it's trial and error, and we're going to try, have some information, and we can see. And next week we're going to see who had a good moment and who had a struggling moment, and how we can think together to see how we can help each other. Okay. All right. So here, today, I'm just quickly going to share my screen with you. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to be starting. This is a mastermind course. Now, just very quickly, the mastermind course, the difference between the master class and the mastermind course. I like the mastermind courses very much because it gives us a way that we can interact with each other. You are also part of the course, and you're going to give me your ideas as well. It's not just I'm telling you what to do, but we're going to have an interaction between each other. Okay. So this mastermind is about understanding ADHD and building the foundation. Now, first of all, for us to understand exactly what it is, ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And as it is, the name is very misleading because it is not a deficit, it's not necessarily a hyperactivity, and it's definitely not a disorder. It's a different way the brains are working. So the name is very misleading, but it's a very old name. Research now proved that it's not attention deficit, but rather inattentiveness due to multiple attentions to too many details at one time that cause distraction. It's a condition that can make it a bit harder for some kids to focus on a specific task or to sit still, but not always. Sometimes they sit very still and you just don't know that they don't have attention there, or control their impulses. But all three of them is not necessarily for every ADHD kid. So just to give you an idea, imagine having a radio in your head that sometimes just switch channels. Or if you're on YouTube and it just switches from one video to another video without your interaction, it will make it a little tough to pay attention to just the one thing because it keeps on switching channel. So this is basically what happens in an ADHD brain, as they have so many things that they are focusing on at one time that it keeps switching channels. And that makes an inactivity in the end because they don't know what to pay attention to. So this can lead to difficulties in school, at home, or when playing with friends. But the good news is that when you understand, support, and you get the helpful strategies, kids with ADHD can do very, very well and shine in their own unique ways. All right. So just very quickly looking at the neurobiology of ADHD, as in the brain, the ADHD is linked to imbalances in certain neurotransmitters. Now, what is a neurotransmitter? This is a chemical, as everything in our body is chemicals that is bind and it has energy around it. And this particular chemicals help to transmit signals between two neurobrain cells. Now, the neurobrain cells is not attached to each other, so the signals need to jump. And there is often with ADHD, the gap is too big and they can't completely give the information over. So the two main neurotransmitters involved in ADHD is called dopamine and norepinephrine. Now, dopamine is usually important to regulate attention, motivation, and reward systems in our brain. So we have to understand that even the thoughts that's coming up in our brain is chemically balanced. or imbalance. So if you have somebody that doesn't show motivation, it's not necessarily that they don't want to, but they might have not enough dopamine to give the motivation for them to do. And the same with the reward systems in our brain. They might do something, but they don't feel in themselves that they have achieved anything. So it doesn't mean anything. So this means that ADHD, there might be an impaired function of dopamine receptors, leading to focus and motivation that's not necessarily as well felt for the individual. Now, norepinephrine is important for attentional regulation and attention arousal. Now, this you find in a classroom situation. In the beginning, they might have the attention, but to keep the attention in a specific task, you need norepinephrine in your brain to keep your attention at that one task. So in ADHD, this will mean that you experience difficulty in sustaining attention or staying alert. Now, structurally, our brains, the regions associated with attention and impulse control is the front part of our brain, and that might be smaller and less active in people with ADHD if you do a brain scan. Now, the prefrontal cortex that's responsible for executive functioning, like your decision-making and your self-control, may be a little bit of a different size, and the connectivity is not that good. Now, I must also say it develops slower, and it can have a lack of about 2 years, as this part is only reached maturity at the age of 25. So the one thing I want to stress on you is that the brain, at the beginning, they thought, okay, the brain is, you can't really change. If you have an impairment in your brain, it's going to stay there, which they now found out is not true. If we put certain stimulations on that specific area, you can actually stimulate it to grow faster. So if the earlier you can actually pinpoint this, the more you can help your child. So for a 13-year-old person with ADHD, executive functioning, meaning decision-making, social interaction, that type of thing, and self-control also might be at the age of an 11-year-old. So we don't always pick it up early enough, but this is how you can see at a 16-year-old or at an 18-year-old, you will tell them, you should know this by now without thinking, and they actually have the executive functioning of a 16-year-old who is much more impulsive than what an 18-year-old is supposed to be. Okay.
Yeah.
So ADHD also runs in families, and it tends to have genetic factors, although it has not been proven. ADHD is a very new concept if you look at medicine. So it hasn't been proven that it's genetic. However, it does run in families. You can see there's always more than 1 or 2 that has got some ADHD tendency, although it might not be the same tendency that they might be showing. The one child might be showing more anxiety, where the other child might be showing more inattentiveness. This include the dopamine regulation and also the speed of which the brain will grow. Now, it's a complex phenomena which is still not fully understood at its interplay between genetic, environmental, traumatic experience, as well as neurobiology factors. With this and my research, I also want to add that a nutritional imbalance very much mimics the ADHD symptoms. So by only changing the food that the child is eating, or the time that the child is eating the food, to making dinner a little bit earlier and not that close to bed time or something like that, you can already make a difference in the symptoms that the child is showing. Okay, diagnosis process for ADHD. It is complex. A diagnosis is not just a test that they're taking, like an IQ test or something like that, but it involves time. So for instance, at DIA, if you're going to ask them for where you need to go for ADHD, what they will do is they will send someone into the classroom to observe the child. They will see if it's predominantly inattentive presentation, if it's predominantly hyperactive, impulsive, if it's a combination of the two that leads to the fact that attention is not given at a certain place and time. Symptom assessment will be how the child reacts. As I said, observation. Then there's rating scales and questionnaires that they will do to see where he fits in or where she is doing in a normal neurotypical growth of a child. Okay. Then they go and they rule out all other conditions. And if I say all other conditions, we start from autism right through to hearing or sight, or maybe how many antibiotics the child has used in his life, anything else. You also can rule out gut problems. You can do blood tests for gut problems. So all of that is also part of the test. Duration and onset. How bad is the inattentiveness that you get? Does the child have an attention span of 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? How much is it on par with the child's age? Because it becomes a little bit longer as the child age normally. Then developmental history, and over there I want to also place that we do have all our children of us that are expats have some developmental history of moving from the one continent to another continent, or moving from one school to another school, changing education plans and things like that, that might also have an impact on the attentiveness that they might have right now. But as soon as they settle, this might go away. So part of that is also part of the developmental history that they will be looking at. Then medical cause, thyroid problems. If you have a hyperthyroid, you can also show hyperactivity. If you have an underthyroid, you can show inattentiveness, or you can just mainly not be able to focus at all. So they do test the thyroid as well, or they should. Sleep. Does the child sleep enough for their age? Because if they don't have enough sleep, they will also not be able to pay attention or remember anything. Is there any neurological problem? Did they ever have a fall, that they hit their head or something like that, that there might be an injury that you need to look at? How was the birth? Was the child a preemie? And how did the neurological development of the child go about? And the last one, obviously, nutrition deficiencies, which I am very much about that. Where we live, we have to see if the food that we are eating is organic, or if we don't have maybe a heavy metal toxicity that might impair attentiveness and things like that. Treatment response, behavioral therapies and or medication or nutritional changes or supplements. How does the child respond to treatments? In the beginning, I know nobody wants to really look at ADHD medication because there is such a big controversy about it. So for me, I always say, first go the nutritional side and see if it makes a change. Do the normal supplements, see if it makes a change. But if you feel that your child still needs help, then yes, go and see what medications can offer you and go deep into it. So in conclusion, the diagnosis of ADHD is a complex process that involves a gathering of information from various sources, considering the person's history and symptoms, and ruling out all other possibilities for the behavior in question and testing response on treatment. It's a lengthy process, and it must be made by a professional in order to start a tailored treatment to help every person in this condition on an individual level. Okay, so first of all, how are we going to start with this? As a parent towards our child, we need to know that the child knows that they can come with us if they're not feeling well. Now, Rania, your boy woke you up 5 times last night. I think that he knows he can come to you with a problem. So he wasn't too scared to get up and actually come and ask for help, which is a very good thing. He feels safe with you, which is why he's asking your help. Now, yes. First of all, something that we can change, I'm going to give you some tips here with the active listening techniques to find out exactly what is going on. So you need to find out where the root of the anxiety is lying. So in order to do that, you need to sit down, you have to have eye contact with your child and open body language, which is inviting to say, you can talk to me. Okay, so you make time with your body language as well when your child talk, and show that you are engaged and you're respectful towards the conversation that you are having. When they see you are engaged and respectful, they will also calm down and engage in this. So this is the non-verbal start of an active listening technique. Reflective listening will be, you paraphrase what your child say to confirm the understanding. Like you will say, I understand that you had trouble focusing in class, or I understand that you have trouble falling asleep. So let's see what it is that actually happens and how we can correct it. So you have to actually give them the words back to paraphrase to them that you heard what they said. It is a good thing to also teach them this is how you active listen, because you're going to switch it around to help them later as well. When you give them an instruction, you're going to say, would you please bring your washing down for me? And then wait a second and say, what did I just say to you? And they said, Mom asked me to bring the washing down. And explain to you the reason why you're asking is because you realize that their brain might be busy with something else while you're asking it. So for them telling you what you just asked, you know that they have heard what you said, but you have to do the same with them as well. So when they talk to you, repeat what they said in a paraphrase so that they know that you have heard what they said. Okay, you ask open-ended questions. So open-ended questions, and here's the thing that I want to tell you about the swimming, where your child was said he's stressed about swimming. You asked him, is it about the swimming that you are stressed? And he says yes. Try to not ask yes or no questions, because the child needs to give you his own point of view. Otherwise, you give him a reason, and he can very easily take that reason on when you give it to him. Sometimes he will tell you, I don't know. And then you have to find out exactly a little bit deeper what it is. But ask, what was it that wake you up? What was the first thing in your brain that woke you up? What were you thinking about? How did you wake up? Did you have a bad dream, or was it just that you have trouble falling asleep? Something like that, so that you can actually get to the root of their anxiety without leading them into an answer. Otherwise, you're giving them an answer which they will just grab because it's the easiest way to do this conversation. Okay. So at the end of the day, it's a good idea to go sit down with him before bedtime and just go through the day with him and asking them, what was the most challenging part of the day? What was the part of today that you enjoyed the most? Because when they dump their information on the day before they go to bed, their brain doesn't need to actually actively file it at night, because they have already done that. So the brain can calm down a little bit better. When you go into REM sleep, just for instance, that's when your brain is most active, because it's filing all the memories of the day. Now, if you never find REM sleep, then the next morning you will wake up confused. And that very often happens with an ADHD brain. It never gets to the filing point. So it makes it fuller and it's more distracted the next day. So very, very important to calm them down so that they can get into REM sleep. But you make it easier if you start filing it before the time, asking them, how was their day? So when you ask it, why, what, and how is the way you're going to ask them questions. Okay. Show empathy by acknowledging your child's emotion without judgment. So it sounds like you had a frustrating day. If you want to talk about it, you are more than welcome. I'm here. Or why would you feel like you had a frustrating day? What was the most frustrating part of your day? This validates their feelings, and it fosters that you understand what they are trying to say. With clear and concise communication, we get answers. We know exactly how their brain is thinking and what is irritating them, but it takes some time to learn what the exact trigger is. So how do we do this effective communication so that we can get to the triggers? By establishing a clear and concise communication with your teenager or child, you can improve your relationship and help them feel heard and understood. So there are 3 essential steps that you can go for the active listening that we've just done. So you give them an undivided attention, you avoid interruption, or offer an immediate solution. Try and listen in order to hear what they're saying and not listen in order to answer them back. Utilize non-verbal cues to show engagement. So you nod your head or you take their hands when you feel that they need a hug or something like that, so that they can feel that you are present, but you are not interrupting them. And then reflect their feelings and thoughts for confirmation. You must have an open and a non-judgment approach towards them. So you create a safe and a judgment-free environment for open dialogue. Don't just jump in when there's friends around or even siblings around. Tell them, okay, let's go sit down and let me talk to you in the corner or in your room or something. So it must be a free environment, a judgment-free environment. Okay. Refrain from criticizing them or lecturing them in anything when they are talking to you, because they are thinking you are just going to answer them back and they are just wrong all the time. You can later give them clues or give them ideas, but at that moment, let them talk first and just reflect on what they are saying. Again, the open-ended questions helps a lot. And then also, if they tell you, I don't want to talk right now, I'll come to you later, respect their privacy while setting necessary boundaries. Okay, so you will tell them, okay, I can see that you are upset. If you don't want to talk about it now, I'll give you an hour and then you come to me to talk about it. But let them know they are going to talk about it, but they can calm down first if they don't want to talk about it right now. And then give them some time later when they are calm. So clear and respectful communication between two people will be concise and direct in communication. And you will use also sentences starting with, I feel that. So you can start with, I feel that you are upset today. Would you tell me about your feelings? And when you tell me about your feelings, please say in the beginning of your sentence, I feel that, when they answer you back. Teach them that they can say, this is my feelings, this is what I feel. So, and teach them also what they feel is very, very unique to themselves. So they are really, they are allowed to have that feeling and say it. Okay. So building the trust and rapport to get the open communication may take some time. So remain patient and consistent in your efforts. It doesn't happen overnight. The steps that I just gave you will foster a better and more concise conversation with your child, improving understanding and then strengthening the bond between the two of you. And when that bond is strengthening, your child will come out and tell you exactly the triggers where they get. Is it maybe that there's constant noise that they hear, so that you know the trigger is through the auditory system? Is it something that they see? Is it the light that's flickering or something? Or is it maybe that their clothes are irritating them, the type of clothing that they've got on? What is it, the triggers that they have? Right. So how to encourage open dialogue between a parent and a child? The first 2 slides that we now did gave us a framework on how to go about setting up the open dialogue and how to manage it. But to achieve open dialogue with your child, you need mutual respect, privacy, boundaries, patience, and remember to celebrate the achievements before showcasing mistakes. Okay, so yes, we need to tell our child when they do something wrong or when they feel that they are not being heard and they have a tantrum and everything. Don't just tell them to stop a tantrum, but first make sure that they know that you see what they do right more than what you see what they do wrong. So they will be able to take advice from you when they do something wrong, if they know that you also see their positive side. Okay, so this is to foster a trust and an open, meaningful conversation with your child. And then you also know that when they trust you with that intimate feelings that they've got, they will always come to you and tell you when they need help. All right. So this is the presentation that I've